So once again, here we are at the Ontario Regiment Museum, and we're working on the Striker. Would you mind giving us a explanation of what you're doing?
Of course. This vehicle's got oil-soaked brake pads on the steering brakes and the service brakes. Water tends to collect in the bottom of the hull with oil mixture. When you move the vehicle, it splashes up on the brakes, so they're inefficient, they don't work properly. So here we pulled the steering brakes out of this unit. We're going to burnish the pads, sand them down, bake them, and try and get as much as the oil as we can without hurting the material, because there's lots of pad in there so we can reuse them. And we'll put them back in and the brakes will work like new.
Well, and how did you get to this point right now?
We have to remove the armor plate, obviously. The radiator is swiveled on this with swivel connections. So you don't have to disturb the system, you can actually keep it intact. Remove it up. It's quite hard to get to these, you got to slide down here. There's 2 cotter pins, and they run on 2 slide pins. So you pull the pins out, the pads come off the top loading caliper, and then we're able to pull them out, sand them, bake them, service them, and reinstall them.
All right. And does this lead to any more restorations on this vehicle?
Inside, Malcolm's right now repairing their master cylinders. Again, being a sitting vehicle, they have rainwater collect on the bottom of the floor pan, things get rusty, need to be rebuilt. We've got the drains opened up in this, now the hull will drain, so it shouldn't happen again. So once the master cylinders are in and the pads are in, this thing should be good to go for quite some time.
All right, well, thanks very much for your time.
Cheers. Take it.
Yeah, I mean, they are not going to be doing any braking. That's what was reported, was that the brakes, all steering brakes.
So Malcolm, could you tell us what you're doing over there?
Yeah, sure. We this Striker, right? This Striker came in for no brakes, no steering brakes, no main brakes. But I think Chris mentioned we found about 2 inches of ice, frozen ice on the floor, and this is the steering, the 2 steering master cylinders. You can see the master cylinders here, and the linkage with the tiller bars mount on here. 2 tiller bars mount on here, and they sit in water. The water is literally they sit right to the floor, and the water sits about here. So water gets into the master cylinders, and they start to corrode. In fact, I thought that was the problem when I had no brakes, but when I took these apart and cleaned them, they were a bit rusty at the end of the master cylinder, but they hadn't got into the bore, it hadn't damaged the bore, so I was able to just rebuild them with the existing parts. The U-cup seals were still good. And so now I've done that, rebuilt them, cleaned them up, and I'm installing them back in. We've drilled a hole in the floor to allow this, the section, the compartment under the driver's feet to drain, because these things had a terrible problem with various compartments in the hull filling up with water and then causing rust and damage to equipment. And so now it will stay drained, and I can put these back in, and we'll move on to what Chris is working on. He's trying to get the oil cleaned up on those rotors and pads so we can see if we can get some brakes back. If it's not that, worst case scenario is it's a leaking seal, final drive seal or gearbox seal, that's leaking along the shafting and spraying up onto the rotors. But we're hoping it's not that. Just it was oil caught up in rainwater that was sloshing around in the bottom and getting onto the rotors. That's the main brake master cylinder here, and this is the foot brake lever. Oh, I have to remember not to. Oh, there's no fluid in it anyway. I don't want to pop those pistons out the calipers. And this is the one you just saw with the 2 cylinders for the the brake steering on or the gear steering on either side. So right now I'm putting the banjo bolts back in to reconnect the tubing. I'll put them in, make sure I can engage the bolts before I actually bolted the assembly down hard. Just dropped a copper washer there. I annealed those copper washers there. I heated them up to red hot and air cooled them, softens them again. I've actually never bought a copper washer always just to nail them.
Okay, last caliper, I'm going to throw it back.
Right, that's it. Yeah, I've got the paper for that. Yeah.
Good?
I'm good. We're just, Chris is in the process of pulling off this driver's side shield here. It's the partition plate between the driver and the engine. It's got some sound insulation on it. And we're pulling it off to get access to check the water pump belt. And I think the filter's down in here, in there, so we want to check out to change the filter. And there was something else. Oh, I want to pull the distributor cap off and check the points and the connections inside the distributor, the high voltage connections inside the distributor. And also just to have a general look around. We're sort of going over this whole vehicle because it hasn't had any maintenance for quite a while. Okay, try it now. Broke me off, she's pretty tight.
Pretty snug, eh?
To get it in from the side here. So what do you think? You up for this, Sean?
Sure.
Oh jeez, there's nothing in it, nothing to it.
Where's it going?
Just on the floor there, anyway you can stand it up. You don't have to get grabbed there. Right. Well, we've got the Solex carburetor sitting on top of the intake here. We've got a large oil filter. Chris is pointing at it. That's the distributor I wanted access to get the lid off and check all the internal connections and the points. As I said, I'm assuming it's still a points ignition. I thought maybe might be upgraded to electronic. There's a coil there. And there was something down here that I don't know what it is. It looks like it must be an external oil pump, this guy here. But I'm not familiar with these engines, so I don't know for sure. And then there is the starter. Which is, so being able to take this side panel off gives you fairly good access to this stuff. Makes working on it a lot easier, except it looks like that little V-belt, that little water pump drive V-belt at the back there. It hasn't improved the access to that very much. Oh, and Chris is just saying the idler pulley is loose, so the belt's loose. And that's about it.
All right. Thanks for your time, Malcolm and Chris.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yeah.